Good evening, everyone. I'm going to call the March meeting of the Washington County Quorum Court to order. First, we have prayer and pledge, and Justice Dennis has a guest here to help us with that this evening. Justice Dennis, you want to introduce your guest?
Thank you, Judge. This is Dr. Jeremy Roberts from First Baptist Church in Farmington. I've asked him to pray in place. I yield it to him.
Lord Jesus Christ, we pray to you, asking you, Lord, to make it where tonight is a peaceful evening where we can get much done for your glory. Lord, we pray that as the judge leads us, that you would give him, especially give him wisdom. And Lord, we pray that our community, our county would thrive. We pray that you would be honored. In Jesus' name we pray, amen. 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 I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Justice Dennis. And Dr. Roberts, thank you, sir. Thank you for being our guest this evening. Next, we'll move to the adoption of the agenda. Do I have any motions with regard to the agenda? Justice Lyons?
I move we adopt the agenda.
I have a motion to adopt the agenda by Justice Lyons, second by Justice Dean. All those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? The agenda has been adopted. Next is preliminary motions. Do we have any preliminary motions this evening? Justice Dean?
Thank you, Judge. Yes, I'd like to make a motion that all ordinances and resolutions be read by title only.
I have a motion by Justice Dean to read ordinances and resolutions by title only. I have a second by Justice Rios Stafford. All those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? Ordinances and resolutions will be read by title only. Item number 5 is citizen comments. We have a 15-minute comment period with a limit of 3 minutes per individual. Citizen comments. If you'll push the button, I believe it's on the bottom right.
How's that?
You're live. Please state your name and where you're from for the record.
My name is Kenneth Lovett. I'm from Fayetteville, 18702 Clearwater Road. We have an issue with politics and hazardous vapors in Washington County. I've reached out to the judge. I've sent y'all some emails. I'm not going to rehash that with you. And he refuses to reply to me. He walked back here a while ago and said I was disrespectful and that he would not speak to anybody that was disrespectful. But he steady calls out, you know, we're going to work this together, but if he can't talk to you, how are you going to work it out? And human nature, you get aggravated when people don't listen to you. So what do? The commission, or not the commission, the operations center out here, he says, we can't help us. And I ask him how much he has helped us. How much has he talked to ADQ? 0. You got people out here choking to death. They ain't died yet from that vapor, but it's getting them. We have people sick that the doctor says is caused from pollution. Is it not your responsibility to stand up for your people? I know you can't reply to me, but, you know, I get up in the morning, I have a headache. I go to work, it goes away. I leave my home, and I go somewhere else in the county, and it goes away. It's coming from Eco Vista. Our emergency response has abilities while they're standing around there flicking their fingers. Y'all send them $1 million. There's some money there to do something. Why are you doing nothing? It affects me and my family every day. It affects my neighbors. And it's coming from there. It's coming from the RNG plant. The Regulation 22 from the ADQ has not been updated since 2007. 2012, Waste Management built a waste-to-energy plant. Check that time. 2023, they added RNG plant. They still haven't updated the regulations. They're going by old regulations. They're not testing. Until last year, a year ago in April, they tested 4,900% acrolein over the EPA RSL. They tested 209% benzene over the EPA RSL. And they have done nothing for a year. We're human beings. You're the leader of the Washington County Emergency Response Crew, right? You and Mr. Luther? Why have you not done nothing? Why has he not called me back? Why have you not called me back? Why do you want to stand here and say I'm disrespectful? You set a meeting up, we'll talk, and we'll be respectful, and we'll get something worked out.
Thank you, Mr. Levitt. Next public comments, please.
Is time up?
Time's up, sir. Thank you. Appreciate you.
Your time
Next
will be
public
soon.
comment.
Good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. My name is Lee Turner, and I reside at 590 North Rockcliffe Road in Fayetteville. I'm here to speak in favor of J.P. Coger's resolution to approve an ordinance declaring that Washington County is a welcoming and inclusive community. I am the mother of a trans person. Recently, my child has taken drastic steps to change their appearance to fit in, so they're not an even easier target for violence. My child lives with fear, and as their mother, I do too. Moreover, they have endured several hostile work environments here in Northwest Arkansas, and they've been forced out of not just one, not two, but 3 jobs. No one should be subject to this abuse or vitriol for simply being. And make no mistake, they didn't choose who they are. This is their authentic self that they're trying to be. For many years, I was informed, and I must have forgotten it, that in high school they told me what they wanted to do, and I cried. And so they kept this for 15 or more years. So this is who they are. Further, this isn't just about my child or the LGBTQ community. It's about all our fellow human beings who don't fit the majority norms because of the color of their skin, their economic status, or their country of origin, as examples. In closing, this isn't just a symbolic gesture. Words do have power, as J.P. Coger has stated. They have the power to make those who are marginalized to feel accepted and valued and to live their best lives. And I don't think this is too much to ask. So I ask you sincerely to vote in favor of the resolution to adopt an ordinance declaring that Washington County is a welcome and inclusive community. Thank you very much.
Diana Scott, 299 North Platinum, Fayetteville. Good evening. I just want to first off start by thanking the Quorum Court for allowing us to do public comments. I think they're a very important part of the democratic process. I'm glad that's part of this meeting tonight. I, too, am in support of that resolution involving making Washington County welcoming and inclusive. In this current political environment, that is not a foregone conclusion, and certain populations feel very marginalized and very frightened right now. So I would hope, I'm glad to see it pass out of committee, and I would hope that it passes tonight. Secondly, I was aware that the minutes, as approved by the Quorum Court, were going to be posted online. They were going to be resumed in 2025. Today is the March meeting, so the February minutes will be approved, and right now the only ones online are January. I understand that lag time. What I don't understand is how hard they are to find. On the Quorum Court website, there's a sidebar that says minutes. And you might think minutes is where they'd be, but no. I have to go to the Washington County homepage, hover over Government, select County Clerk. On the left side of the County Clerk's page, I choose CIS County Document Search. I have to click on that again a second time, and then choose Quorum Court, Minutes, and enter a date range. And finally, I see the January minutes. I would ask this horseshoe to consider making the minutes more readily available to the public. Thank you.
Thank you. Public comments.
Hello, I'm Charles McKinney, 19956 Lakeview Road. I do really appreciate your efforts, and I am here to support the efforts to support our rural life and to simplify the zoning ordinance. And I think that great progress was made at the last meeting when Section 5 was removed, as well as the zoning map that showed the commercialization of Highway 412. I think you've probably seen my detailed comments, so I'm simply going to summarize by saying that the map that was up last time was the wrong map, right? And that there are still some things in Section 5 which I think are valuable. Also, I also want to say that J.P. Lyons' adaptation of the CUP process from our earlier zoning ordinance was well done, and it fits properly in Section 5. And there are some pieces of Section 5 remaining that you might like to preserve, pretty much B through K. And I'm not really sure that we still have anything in there that says that the unincorporated lands of Washington County are residential agricultural. I think they were in Section 5 as well. And I have been recommending that the conditions in the conditional use permit not be discretionary, that any non-conforming use have to have the very same conditions, building on the conditions that you have now, but to make them specific, such as regulations of amplified music should have decibel limits, hours, so that you don't have to encounter someone who argues with you about whether or not you have the authority. But it includes controlling of dust and order, concealing parking. I won't read them all, but certainly a certification of septic adequacy and compliance with the Arkansas Fire Protection Code, if these were mandatory requirements. So the main purpose of me tonight is just to bring some details forward that will improve the ordinance that you're considering, and to ask you to make a motion to create a clean copy of the ordinance at the next service committee, so that we can all make sure that all of these pieces fit together well. Thank you.
Thank you. Public comments.
Good evening, Sherry Main, 15451 Riches Road, Fayetteville. And I sent an email today to all the JPs and to Director Ada regarding my suggestions to add to planning and zoning ordinances to make agricultural uses less subjective. I had a JP reach out to me and ask me to send some of the research I had done to him to consider in adding to the zoning and planning ordinances to actually firm it up and remove a lot of the gray area. And what these topics are: agritourism activity and agritourism activity operators, agriculture-related businesses, and definition of an animal and a farm, agricultural buildings, and agricultural land use. Farm buildings and structures. If we could define these and put these in our ordinances, we could clean up a lot of the subjective areas in our agricultural use. Agricultural use is not supported by the topography design of the land after the commercial mining process depletes the chert, gravel, rock, and soil. The reclamation plan requires this land to be graded, sloped, seeded for grass, and returned to a useful condition. The intent that there will be agricultural use once the mining is complete should not be a determining factor for the current use of the property. Commercial mining is a high-intensity use and would require a CUP. The agricultural use would begin after the reclamation is completed. And I have further research in a particular case of the Weddington mine, where originally it was going to be a agricultural exemption because it it was going to be greenhouses. And the dirt was going to be removed for the greenhouses, but that's no longer the plan, the site plan. So it's been resubmitted to be pasture fields after the mining is completed. So the intent is not agricultural. The intent is a surface red dirt pit with a mining permit and a stormwater permit and everything that's required by DEQ. And in no way is it to be considered agricultural.
Thank you, Ms. Main. Your time has expired. We have about a minute and a half left.
Thank you.
Public comments? Yeah, I heard him. I need him to finish. Add 2 minutes? Okay. So I have a motion to suspend rules and add 2 minutes by Justice Pond, second by Justice Lyons. All those in favor? Those opposed? You have 3 minutes, 3.5 minutes. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you. I'm Steve Green. I live near West Fork, Arkansas. I appreciate that. This is more a philosophical thing. The county where we prosper is largely the result of a great experiment that visionary leadership in 2006 made possible for us to enjoy. Will we act as shepherds and caretakers of this wonderful county we've inherited, or will we seek to foster and institutionalize short-term monetary gain? The zoning ordinance of 2006 did an amazing thing. It codified land use based on Christian principles of neighborliness, while balancing the need for economic prosperity. That experiment has been wildly successful and extremely popular with county residents. The Quorum Court of that time looked into the future, into now, and provided guidance that would preserve the natural beauty and agricultural spaces for our children and grandchildren. As a direct result, our county is the envy of the state and one of the most prosperous places in the entire nation. And by its very success, it's a thorn in the side of the state legislature. Now we're engaged in a great battle testing whether a county such as ours will be allowed to be self-governing. There are those in government who revere the seduction of wealth over all else and seek to codify it in law. They seek conformity in every state, every county, and every village. Taking their methods from the handbook of every authoritarian government in history, they co-opt the very language they use to justify their unchristian agenda, perverting the concept of freedom and individual rights. I do not often cite religious references, believing as I do in the separation of church and state, but in this case, I'll follow the lead of our county judge in seeking guidance in Scripture. How does one refute the idea that the only freedom and individual right worth having is the notion that it is right to profit without regard for the effect on one's neighbors? In answer, there are dozens of biblical references, none of which praise monetary gain over your neighbor's good. But I suggest Proverbs 3:29 is particularly apt. Do not plot evil against your neighbor who dwells trustingly beside you. If you support land use zoning in this county, I say well done. If you support the state agenda as in House Bill 1754 and have already been trying to implement it in our county, I suggest you carefully limit the education and awareness of your children. You may not respect me, but when your grandchildren learn that you sold their world for your gain, they will judge you harshly. Thank you. And now I'm going to go call a square dance.
Thank you. That ends public comments. I want to appreciate everybody. We're going to have we have a short judge's report this evening. First of all, I always want to give a big heartfelt thank you to the people who provide our refreshments and snacks tonight. It was Goin' Showin' 4-H Club, and so we really appreciate those distinguished young people coming up here. The disposal report is in your packet. First of all, the only piece of news I have tonight is after a long years of a dark cloud hanging over our head, the lawsuit that was filed against us for our COVID mitigation project by the group AJRC was dismissed yesterday. And I invite every member of the public to read Judge Brooks's opinion in that case. It was very decisive, and I also want people to get a real taste of the hollow challenges that we receive here in the county. I also want to note that approximately $65,000 of hard-earned Washington County tax money was wasted defending that lawsuit. I have a promise to all taxpayers and all those hardworking families out there. I'm gonna do everything I can to recoup every one of those dollars for those legal fees that we had to expend for that defense. And then I'm glad this is behind us. And once again, I echo the comments of my state of the county. We all have to work together. It's time to quit the obstruction and the delays. Finally, we've have 3 vacancies on the Law Library Board, and we've had 3 applicants. First is a Mr. Cameron Baker. Cameron serves as the new Deputy City Attorney for City of Springdale and formerly worked as a state public defender in Colorado. He has been a litigator for 5 years. Secondly, we have Miss Amy Driver. Amy Driver is a former federal and state prosecutor who successfully prosecuted child pornography cases within the Northwest Arkansas Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force. She's a certified law enforcement instructor and has been a litigator for 30 years. And finally, we have Mr. Mark Boer. Mark is a criminal defense attorney and adjunct professor of legal studies. He is an Army veteran of the Balkan War and serves as counsel for the Wings of Our Troops, a nonprofit serving veterans around the world. He's been a litigator for 17 years. I have a motion to approve these appointments by Justice Pond, second by Justice Secchi. All those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? Congratulations to those 3 candidates. Well, Counselor pointed out that I missed number 6. Can we back up and do that one real quick? Approval of the minutes, so I apologize about that. Are there any corrections or changes to the minutes? If not, I'll entertain a motion to accept the minutes. Motion to accept the minutes by Justice Lemming. I believe I heard second by Justice Ricker. All those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? Thank you for allowing me to get my numbering out of order. Now we'll move on to new business. Counselor, number 8, will you read that by title only?
An ordinance creating new planning and zoning law in Washington County and for the other matters pertaining thereto.
Justice Lyons?
Thank you, Judge. I have a few amendments I'd like to make to this before we continue. The first one is I move that we amend this to remove section 4.b, which starts on page 14 of the ordinance and goes through 28, and then renumber C through H sections to sections B through G. The reason for this is procedures for approval under the new ordinance, which conflicts with the CUP process. So we're going to have conflicting sections or conflicting ordinances, which I don't think is a good thing.
I have a motion to amend by Justice Lyons. Do I have a second? Second by Justice Rios Stafford. Do we have any debate or comments on the amendment? No. Are we ready to take it up? Those in favor of the amendment, aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? That amendment carries.
My second one, and actually I have one small change. So my second one, the amendment is I move that we replace what section 5 is called reserved today and submit the amendment that I have for 5 that I've passed out. I think it's in your packet. Basically, simply speaking, it takes the CUP process that is currently codified in our ordinances today and puts it in section 5. So again, everything we need to know about zoning is in this ordinance. That's really what it does. I have one small change to that package I handed out. Section L was notification, and it's about 2 paragraphs long. It was pointed out to me that this is defined as a definition in section 1A70, so I'm just proposing in that change, we modify that to be notifications will be made per 1A70.
I have a
That
motion.
way it's consistent.
I have a motion to amend by Justice Lyons, second by Justice Secchi. Any discussion or debate on the amendment? Seeing none, all those in favor of the amendment, aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, the amendment carries.
One
Justice
more.
Lyons?
There is a map in this package. It's the very last page, which should not be there. So I move that we amend this by removing that map from this package.
Motion by Justice Lyons to remove the map, second by Justice Koger. Any discussion or debate on that amendment? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed, the amendment carries. Justice Lyons?
That's the last amendment I have. Before I make the next motion.
What? Just. I'm sorry. We'll have to cue your mic again, sir. We couldn't hear you. Go ahead.
It's the last amendment I have. The last thing we need to do is make a motion to send this to the planning board for a public hearing. But before we do that anymore, I think we need to make sure we've got a clean package, any more amendments, whatever we need to do here.
Need just a moment, please. I had something. Thank you. Okay, so just what Justice Lyons just said about having a clean package, I had some question about, like, on page number, I don't have it in front of me, but what page, but item number 95, under definitions, it uses permitted, and it talks about the area so zoned or designated as agricultural and single-family residential, the latter to have a lot, tract, or parcel of no less than 1 acre. And I think it needs to end there. The next part says, however, if any city requires a larger size in its subdivision regulations, then the larger size of the larger size will be controlling. But the reason I bring that up is because House Bill 1510 repealed the territorial jurisdiction of municipalities. So I'm just asking if that's something we need to take out.
That's still under consideration. It's not passed yet, correct?
I believe it's passed the
It passed.
legislature. I think.
Oh, did it?
My opinion, which gets less and less in this particular issue, is that we would continue to wait. I don't know what the implementation would look like. So what I'm saying is that this will need to be amended again for that law when it passes, but I am in no space right now to speak to that law or how we would, and I think, Counselor, if you want to add anything to that.
Well, the only thing is, even when that law passes, or the law is passed out of committee or passed the vote, but it's supposed to be signed by the governor, but it doesn't go into effect immediately. And so this wouldn't necessarily need to change until that change goes into effect, and then it'll have to be amended then.
Okay. I think we're going to have to look at the whole ordinance based on what that says, really, right?
And build
when
it
it
in.
becomes effective. And that's the reason I was curious. Thank you, Counselor.
Justice Rio Stafford?
Thank you, Judge. Yeah, I agree. We need to cross that bridge when we come to it, and the legislature's still in session, and they're still passing more bills, and things may look different even a few weeks from now than they do today. But I just wanted to thank J.P. Lyons for doing the homework and bringing these 3 amendments forward. And, yes, and also bringing up the issue that this needs to get sent over to the Planning Commission. So hopefully we'll see, the public will be able to look at something that's fully engrossed with all the changes. And even though I think Mr. Lester had previously answered the question that even if we hadn't amended this to put the old zoning back in, that the way that it was written, that because that the old zoning would have stood anyway. But I agree that putting it back in there, we're going to have everything all in one place. So I think that's a good thing. And that's really, I think, that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Justice Pond?
Unless I've misunderstood some of the comments, and I'm talking to you, but I want to make sure that other folks on the court were aware that in our existing zoning ordinance, we have a countywide 1 acre minimum lot size requirement for residential, but in order to honor or recognize the city of Goshen, there is some unincorporated area. It's in the Goshen growth area, in the city of Goshen's growth area. The county honored their 2 acre minimum, so in that growth area, which is still unincorporated area in the county, it's under our jurisdiction, we have a 2 acre minimum lot size requirement in that area, in that growth area. And that's the only growth area that I know of that has that special consideration. Probably at the time I didn't really appreciate what it's done for that area, but I think they've done well to keep that 2 acre minimum lot size requirement in Goshen, And therefore, I see that it's a good thing for the county to recognize that and keep that in place. I'm hoping that that had something to do with that wording that was discussed before thank you.
JP Massengill?
Yes, I want to thank JP Lyons also for cleaning everything up and making it a bill, ordinance that we could pass tonight. By pulling out the zoning from the ordinance, I was in favor of that, but that still kind of leaves us, with the CUP process. And I think, I don't know how to make it happen, but I think what we need to do is look at some kind of, having some kind of future land use plan put together. I don't know how to, maybe you could help me out. Maybe we could somehow figure out how we can, get some kind of future land use plan developed for the county to help guide development. And we're going to continue to have development, and I think we need to have some kind of plan to decide where we want that development to move into and how we can guide that in the right direction. So.
Yes, sir. We were discussing some of this with JP Ecke. I mean, I think this work's got to continue. We know that we're trying to just get the standards package. I hope, but absolutely, this has got to start back in earnest tomorrow, right? So, sorry. Justice Rio Stafford?
Thank you. I just wanted to come back around because I've seen I realized I see some confused looks out in the audience, and I just wanted to kind of break down what it is we're about to vote on tonight. So the thing that we now have in front of us is one document that puts together all the different dozens and dozens of different ordinances that we've had over many years, puts them all just into one document. The vast majority of that is not changing at all, not a single line, really, of the vast majority of that. We're not passing the new zoning. That's been taken out of this. So Washington County is going to stay with the zoning that it's had since 2005. That's not going to change. The CUP process that has been in place is not going to change if we pass this. All that is going to stay exactly the same. The map that folks have been seeing for a few months that had a lot of commercial on it and it's slowly been whittled down, we've taken that out of it. So that map is not part of what's getting passed tonight either. So the new zoning's not going to be part of this. The new map is not going to be part of this. This basically mostly just takes everything that's been in place already in our county and cleanly puts it into one document. And that's my understanding of what we're doing and with the amendments and everything else. So just to kind of hopefully clear up some of the confusion that I think I see on some folks' faces.
Justice Lyons?
Thank you, Judge. One small clarification. We're not passing anything tonight. This has to go to the planning board for a public meeting. So I move that we send this to the planning board for the public meeting.
I have a motion to refer it to the planning board for the public meeting. I had a host of seconds. Is anybody, Dean's wanting it. Justice Dean was the second. Any public or further discussion on, further discussion on the item? Justice Bruns?
Yes. Mr. Lester, when did they cut out the 2-acre limit for the state for having to build on? 2 acres limits instead of the 1 acre?
I don't know. I'm not following you.
Okay. We talked about having the 1 acre.
Right,
minimum.
Washington County has a 1 acre minimum lot size.
Right, the state has a 2.
That would be a question for Director Adda.
Dr. Adda?
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. So the idea of like 1 house per acre comes from like the state health department. they request that like each lot to be a minimum of 1 acre to be able to build a house and to have a septic on it. So that's why everything in the county is zoned for residential use as 1 house per acre. The planning area still like falls into the county's jurisdiction. So it's still like 1 house per acre in the county. Goshen, only the city of Goshen and their planning area, they elected to choose 1 house per 2 acres. That's the only difference. And we don't have it like written in our like ordinances for one reason, because they might change their mind about this. That was like an agreement. But we have it on our like active zoning map. If you look into active zoning map, you will see Goshen by itself has a different color. It says 1 house, like 1 residence per 2 acres. So the state has nothing to do with like what we do, as much as like the health department requirements is like a minimum 1 house per acre to have a septic. So that's why.
So we can ignore the state recommend?
We did not ignore anything.
Requirement for the 2 acres?
There is no 2 acres like state requirements. That's not a thing. Yeah. I've never seen like requirements or like any. The state has nothing to do with like splitting land or anything. It's all local. Yep. Yep. That's it.
Any further discussion or questions? Justice, excuse me, tongue-tied, Rivera Lopez, sorry about that.
Thank you.
I about called you by your first name.
Yeah. I do have a question, because I saw that it was Senate Bill 456 that was recommended on a due pass recommendation through the Senate. And that one, I believe, is the Better Housing Opportunities Act. And so does that affect the ordinance that we're passing today? Because I know what a lot of what it did was eliminate aesthetic zoning, for lack of a better word, where you, I'm sorry. And I was hoping, is there an understanding of how that would affect what we are passing on to the planning board? Do we know?
Councilor Lester?
No, I mean, we haven't taken an in-depth look. I mean, we're going to wait to see what passes, what comes out, what's actually signed by the governor. Once that happens, the session is over, we'll come back with recommendations. The planning team will get together and put together recommendations for changes to make sure that what we're doing aligns with whatever goes on, whatever they've passed in the new law.
Any further discussion? I had a motion to refer to the planning board by Justice Lyons. I heard second by Justice Dean. All those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? Aye. That will move to the planning board. Item number 9. Counselor, you read that by title only?
An ordinance amending ordinance 2023-81.
Justice Lemming?
Pull it up, see which one it is. The vacation one. Judge, is this the one where the new HR lady wants to?
Yes, sir.
This will be doing what the HR lady recommends, that it would be better for our employees to have. Well, I make a motion that we pass it.
Motion to pass item number 9 by Justice Lemming, a second by Justice Pond. Any further discussion or debate on item number 9? Public comments on item number 9. Seeing none, we'll take up the motion. I have a motion to pass by Justice Lemming, a second by Justice Pond. Mr. Allen, will you please call the roll?
Justice Lyons? Yes, sir. Yes. Justice Ecke? Yes. Justice Dean? Yes. Justice Washington? Yes. Justice Coger? Yes. Justice Dennis? Yes. Justice Hires? Yes. Justice Rios Stafford? Yes. Justice Lemming? Yes. Justice Ricker? Yes. Justice Pond? Yes. Justice Bruns? Yes. Justice Wilson? Yes. Justice Massengill? Yes. Justice Rivera Lopez? Yes.
Counselor and Parliamentarian reminds me that I have erred. This is on the first reading, and so I apologize about that. Motion to suspend the rules and move to the second reading by Justice Lemming, second by Justice Pond. Is that appropriate, Justice Pond? All right. All those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries. Justice Lemming? Oh, I'm sorry. Man, Counselor, will you read that for a second time, please?
An ordinance amending ordinance 2023-81.
Justice Lemming?
Yeah, I just wanted to make a comment that the way the HR lady explained all that, that's just another good avenue to put savings in the employee's pocket later on in life. So I'm going to move it to the third and final reading.
Motion to suspend the rules and move to the third and final reading by Justice Lemming, second by Justice Lyons. All those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? Counsel, will you read that for a third and final time?
An ordinance amending ordinance 2023-81.
Justice Lemming?
Move to pass.
Motion to pass by Justice Lemming, second by Justice Pond. Any further discussion on item number 10? I'm sorry, yeah. Golly, man, just let me take a 5-minute break real quick. Okay, item number 9. Any further discussion on item number 9? Any public comments on item number 9? Seeing none, Mr. Allen, will you please call the roll?
Justice Lyons? Yes. Justice Ecke? Yes. Justice Dean? Yes. Justice Washington? Yes. Justice Koger? Yes. Justice Dennis? Yes. Justice Hires? Yes. Justice Rios Stafford? Yes. Justice Lemming? Yes. Justice Ricker? Yes. Justice Pond? Yes. Justice Bruns? Yes. Justice Wilson? Yes. Justice Massengill? Yes. Justice Rivera Lopez? Yes.
Item number 9 passes. Item number 10, Counsel, will you read this by title only?
An ordinance supporting the adoption of the Arkansas Diamond Deferred Compensation Plan for the County of Washington.
Justice Lyons?
Yeah, I move that we suspend the rules and move to the second reading.
Motion to suspend the rules and move to the second reading by Justice Lyons, second by Justice Ecke. All those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? Counsel, will you read that for a second time?
An ordinance supporting the adoption of the Arkansas Diamond Deferred Compensation Plan for the County of Washington.
Justice Lyons? Move that we suspend the rules and move to the third and final reading.
I have a motion to suspend the rules and move to the third and final reading by Justice Lyons, second by Justice Ecke. All those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? Counsel, will you read that for a third and final time?
An ordinance supporting the adoption of the Arkansas Diamond Deferred Compensation Plan for the County of Washington.
Justice Lyons.
Yeah, thank you, Judge. So just so everybody's clear, this is a benefit to our employees that allows them to put more money towards a retirement. It's purely funded by them. There's nothing from the county that happens. But it gives them, today they don't have that opportunity. They can't go and add more into their retirement based on the retirement plan that they're in. This gives them that ability. I think it's a great benefit for the employees of the county to have. I move we pass this.
I have a motion to pass by Justice Lyons and a second by Justice Ecke. Any further discussion on item number 10? Justice Lemming.
Mike had told us, the Chief of Staff told us if us JPs want to contribute to it, he said we could. Thank you.
Any further discussion on item number 10? Any public comment on item number 10? Seeing none, I have a motion to pass by Justice Lyons and a second by Justice Ecke. Mr. Allen, will you please call the roll?
Justice Lyons? Yes, sir. Yes. Justice Ecke? Yes. Justice Dean? Yes. Justice Washington? Yes. Justice Koger? Yes. Justice Dennis? Yes. Justice Hires? Yes. Justice Rios Stafford? Yes. Justice Lemming? Yes. Justice Ricker? Yes. Justice Pond? Yes. Justice Bruns? Yes. Justice Wilson? Yes. Justice Massengill? Yes. Justice Rivera Lopez? Yes.
Item number 10 passes. Item number 11 is our consent agenda. Counsel, will you read the items on the consent agenda by title only?
Item 1 on the consent agenda is an ordinance creating the Emergency Operations Center Construction Project Fund and for other matters pertaining thereto. Item 2 is an ordinance anticipating additional revenue in the amount of $10,157 in the Law Enforcement Grant Fund and appropriating $10,157 from the Law Enforcement Grant Fund to the JAG grant budget for 2025. Item 3 is an ordinance amending the prosecuting attorney's budget for 2025. Item 4 is an ordinance recognizing additional revenue in the amount of $10,377.60 in the Supplemental Juvenile Court Grant Fund and appropriating the amount of $10,377.60 from the Supplemental Juvenile Court Grant Fund to the 2025 Bryan AOC JAG Grant for Division 8 budget for 2025. Item 5 is an ordinance creating Fund 6563, Tawny Town Fire Dues, and for other matters pertaining thereto. Item 6 is an ordinance amending the county jail operations and maintenance budget for 2025. Item 7 is not on the consent agenda, my bad. Is it? Oh, sorry. Item 7 is a resolution expressing the willingness of the Quorum Court of Washington County, Arkansas to utilize federal aid funds for the Wheeler Road Clabber Creek Bridge project.
Justice Lyons,
I move we pass the consent agenda.
I have a motion to pass the consent agenda, second by Justice Rivera Lopez. Any discussion on the consent agenda? Any public comments on the consent agenda? Justice Fleming?
I just want to thank Brian for helping with the, getting this deal done for the Tawny Town Fire Department, whenever we done that and worked on that. And the jail operation, if people don't understand what that is, that was projects that was put in last year, and we just have to roll it over to this year. So I just don't want people to think we're just throwing money out there. That was money that was already allocated from last year to this year. So that's what I want. Thank you.
Any public comments on the consent agenda? Seeing none, Mr. Allen, will you please call the roll?
Justice Lyons. Yes. Justice Ecke. Yes. Justice Dean. Yes. Justice Washington. Yes. Justice Koger. Yes. Justice Dennis. Yes. Justice Hires. Yes. Justice Rio Stafford. Yes. Justice Lemming. Yes. Justice Ricker. Yes. Justice Pond. Yes. Justice Bruns. Yes. Justice Wilson. Yes. Justice Massengill. Yes. Justice Rivera Lopez. Yes.
The consent agenda passes. Item number 12, council, will you read that item by title only?
A resolution by the Quorum Court of Washington County, Arkansas, declaring Washington County as a welcoming and inclusive community for all.
Justice Koger?
Yes, thank you, Judge. I told you last week that I was asked to bring this resolution by people and organizations in the immigrant, refugee, and LGBTQ plus communities. The resolution before us tonight is copied after the one that was passed by the city of Fayetteville last month. Those who came to me said, if we pass this resolution, they will feel safer. If we do not pass it, they will feel less safe. I want to be clear. I'm not going to sit here and claim that I know better than they do what will make them feel safer and included. They are the ones living this reality every single day. Their experiences shape their understanding of safety, acceptance, and community. It is my responsibility and our responsibility to listen to them and to act. When someone tells me they're hurting and I can do something that will help, I'm not going to judge that I know what will help, but I'm going to listen to them when they tell me what will help. And when they tell me, I'm going to do my best to make that happen. Now, it's important to note that this resolution is non-binding, but none of our resolutions that we pass are binding. There's absolutely no way this resolution or any resolution can impose new laws or regulations. Only ordinances can do that. But still, this resolution carries weight. Words matter and symbols matter. This resolution is about fostering an environment where we can all thrive, where our community is enriched by different cultures, perspectives, and identities that make us unique. It's a commitment to stand united in the face of division, to embrace our differences and to ensure that everyone feels welcome and valued. And if I may, as the judge said in his State of the County address, respect for everyone, and we will be judged by how we treat our neighbors. Thank you. I make a motion to pass this.
I have a motion to pass by Justice Coger. I heard second by Justice Rivera Lopez. Justice Lyons?
Thank you, Judge. During the committee meeting, all those who spoke in favor of this resolution spoke to the point this is for all people to be welcomed and inclusive in Washington County, pointing out the terms in the resolution itself of all individuals in the first whereas clause and every individual in the second whereas clause. But then in the second whereas clause, it signals out specific groups, which provides the perception there's other intent to this resolution. Therefore, based on that debate, the reasons this resolution should be passed based on that committee meeting and the debate in the committee meeting, I move that we remove in the second whereas clause, line 19, the text between and including the dashes, which will result in it reading, whereas the Quorum Court of Washington County, Arkansas recognizes the inherent dignity of every person and upholds the rights of all individuals to fully participate in and contribute to our community, and it goes to the next whereas.
I have a motion to amend by Justice Lyons to strike through items in line number 19 between the dashes to include the dashes. Second by Justice Lemming. Any discussion on the amendment? Justice Coger, would you like to speak to the amendment? Justice Coger?
Thank you. I do not agree to remove that because I think it's important that we list the people who came to me and who asked for help, and those were the immigrants, refugees, LGBTQ plus persons. So I think it's wrong to remove them from this, to not mention them. I'm voting against this.
Further discussion on the amendment? Justices Wilson and Ecke, would you like to speak on the amendment, or would you? Further discussion? Justice Ecke?
I noticed that on line 43, it says, whereas building trust between immigrant, refugee, and LGBTQ plus communities, if we're going to strike in the second whereas, I believe that.
Just a second. Justice Coger, did you say point of order? Yeah.
I want to just be clear.
Will you please cue your mic so we can get it on the record? Justice Coger?
J.P. Lemming made a motion last time to amend it, and we removed lines 36 through 45, or 46 was my understanding. So those have already been taken, that's already been taken out. Thank you.
Okay, but it's printed, that's why I'm
So it's a
looking at it.
misprint.
So it's a misprint. Okay, thank you.
Okay.
That's
So
fine.
we still have the valid motion to amend by Justice Lyons, second by Justice Lemming. Any further discussion on that amendment? That was to strike through the dashes and the content between them on line number 19. Seeing no further discussion, all in favor of that amendment? Aye. Those opposed? No. Mr. Allen, will you please call roll?
Justice Lyons? Yes, sir. Yes. Justice Ecke? Yes. Justice Dean? Yes, sir. Yes. Justice Washington? No. No. Justice Coger? No. No. Justice Dennis? Yes. Yes. Justice Hires? No. No. Justice Rios Stafford? No. Justice Lemming? Yes. Justice Ricker? No, sir. No. Justice Pond? No. No. Justice Bruns? Yes. Yes. Justice Wilson? No. No. Justice Massengill? Yes. Yes. Justice Rivera Lopez? No. No.
That amendment fails. Justice Wilson?
are we back to discussing the original
We're back to the
resolution?
main motion, the motion to pass item number 12, had motion by Justice Koger, second by Justice Rivera Lopez. So we're back to the main motion.
Okay. Thank you, Judge. When I go through this, the resolution, I see, by my count, there are 5 references to the word safe or the word fear under the first or the third whereas statement. It says deserves to feel safe. The next one says every resident feels safe and respected. If we get to Article 1, it concludes by saying all residents can live free from discrimination, harassment, or fear, so there's that word again. Article 3 says live without fear of discrimination or persecution. Article 4 says at one point ensuring all students feel safe. Now, it looks to me like the description here sounds like we have people all over the county who are scared to death in their own living rooms. Now, I can't speak for...
Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to calm down in the gallery. We can't have outbursts like that while the quorum court's talking. Please be respectful. Justice Wilson, please continue.
Well, there's a lot of hyperbole here, and I think that's disingenuous. I don't think we have a lot of official records of instances where the police are involved or where complaints are made about people who are being assaulted or harassed or intimidated. I know some people have mentioned some problems in the workplace, but I tend to think that this is not a pervasive problem in Washington County or in all of Arkansas, to be honest. And, but the way this is worded tends to believe we got a real serious problem here. And I just think that the wording of it disqualifies the entire matter because it's driven by some emotion. There's nothing wrong with emotion, but it can't be our guide in all of life, I don't think. And it's also, we're trying to pass this based upon emotion. I mean, it's been pretty much stated in so many words that, you know, if you really love people, you're going to pass this. If you don't care, then you won't. And that's not accurate either. But there's some more. Now, I spent a lot of time since we last met. I put together a list of names, and they are names for the most part we would all know. And my list of names, some people are from the past, some people currently living today, but every person that I put on a list, and I could have made it much longer than I did, but it's not a real long list, but I listed people that what we know from studying their lives and studying what they wrote and studying the way they lived and studying what they took a stand on. When you look at history and you look at other things and learn all you can about the individuals, and I can share this in a moment, they would oppose this particular resolution for one of two reasons, or maybe both. They would oppose it because of a strong belief that government doesn't need to go down this pathway. There are a lot of people in our own history who believe strongly in limited government, and they believe that government is not the cure for everything that might ail a person, or in this case, something that might cause fear, real or imagined, within certain groups or segments of our society. Now, I'm just going to read through a list, and we go way back in history, and I'll take it up to the current day. We can go all the way back to before the Bible was even written and list Abraham. Then we could list Moses, King David, King Solomon, Elijah, Isaiah, Jeremiah. That's just the Old Testament. We could mention more, but in the New Testament, we could say John the Baptist. We also know that Jesus himself asked 12 people to be with him. We know that at least 11 of those founded the Christian church. Here again, I'm mentioning people who would oppose this for one or two reasons that I listed. We know that Paul is mentioned in the Bible, and then after the Bible is completed all through Christian history, we've had very strong voices that spoke on issues such as this, either on government or on morality or both. Origen, Augustine, Martin Luther, John Calvin, George Whitefield, Jonathan Edwards, Charles Wesley, and in more recent years, Dr. Billy Graham, and someone still living today, a very old minister from California, Dr. John MacArthur Jr. He's spoken on this issue. But it's not just a church issue. Our founding fathers believed strongly in government only doing certain things. And they will be the first to tell you that government is not going to fix everything that you feel bad about. Thomas Jefferson, George Washington, Benjamin Franklin, John Adams, Sam Adams, John Quincy Adams, James Madison, Lincoln, again, my list could be longer. I want to mention a couple of those as an example. One of those is Paul, and during this discussion in the last meeting, and I've heard it at other times in other places, sometimes people quote verses of Scripture, and I have no problem with that, and they quote Scripture about love. And there's no question that we should all love each other. That's clear in the Bible. And Paul himself wrote much of the New Testament and talked about love and how important it was. But it's a little bit dishonest if you want to talk about the love that's mentioned in the Bible and not look at Romans chapter 1. And this really offends some people. I'm not trying to offend anyone. But Paul wrote clearly in Romans chapter 1 what he thought of issues like this. And I could also mention the person that maybe you know, maybe you don't, Dr. MacArthur. He's a pastor in a church in California. He's only been the pastor there about 55 years. He's one of the leading theologians in our country today. He preached through every single verse in detail in the New Testament. Took him 40 years worth of Sundays. He is an expert in theological issues and biblical studies. There's no question about that. But his church in Southern California, you can imagine all the decades that he's been there, that they've encountered some issues with immigrants from Mexico. They're in the Los Angeles area. Now, in his church, they preach about love quite often, but they preach about everything in the Bible. They have had even illegal aliens come to their church for assistance. They've had illegal aliens over the years come to their church and join. And they've been converted to Christianity. And this church has provided love to those people. But they also said,
Justice Washington, would you like to cue your mic, please? Or, I'm sorry, you got it on. Sorry about that. Justice Washington.
Thank you. So I would just like to know if we have an accounting of the time, because it seems that the 5-minute time limit has been exceeded.
Yeah, we do have a counting of the time. He's got 9 seconds left.
Okay.
Justice Wilson, would you like to continue?
I couldn't wrap it up in 9 seconds, but I could probably in a minute or so.
You have the ability to speak again, but you'll have to, yeah, I mean, it's. I have a motion to suspend the rules and add 5 minutes by Justice Pond, second by Justice Dennis. All those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? Justice Wilson, please continue.
Thank you. I don't think I'll need 5 minutes. I was saying that in the church in Southern California that I referenced, They were showing love to some people that don't always get love in our country, quite frankly, but they were loving them and supporting them, but they were also honest and truthful with them, and there's been many instances where they've said that you're going to have to, if you're a Christian, you're going to have to abide by the laws of this country, and you're going to have to go back where your home is. But they made it clear, we love you and we support you, we'll even give you some financial assistance, but you're going to have to obey the law and go back. So this is an example, a very good example of how you can love somebody but not agree with everything that that person might do or say. And you can lovingly support a person even if you disagree with that person. So we have a model in place for that. I also wanted to say that we've reached a point in Washington County and in this country where a lot of people believe if you disagree with someone, then you just hate them and you don't love them. And I think the example I just gave provides the opposite truth to that claim. My goodness, any of us who's raised teenagers understand that you can love somebody and not agree with what they do. It happens almost in every family. So I think we should dispel the notion that if you vote no on this, that you just don't have any love in your heart for your fellow man. You could argue quite the contrary. So that's one point that I needed to make, and I'm almost done. We've also reached a point in our country where you can do anything that you want with your personal life, and you can live how you want within your personal life. You can even choose any kind of sexual preference that you might want. And almost every American will say, that's your business. And they'll also say, I don't want it to be my business, but that's your business. And that's where a lot of people are in Washington County. However, if that's not good enough for a person and they say, I also want you to endorse this and condone it and approve of it, then it becomes everybody's business. And I can tell you that everybody is not willing to go along with that. In other words, you can live how you want, but don't tell me that I have to like how you live. And there's a lot of Americans that feel that way, and there's a lot of people in Washington County that feel that way. I would say the majority of the voters in Washington County feel that way. So in summary, I just want to say I'm voting no on this. And it's not that I don't love anybody, it's just that if I vote yes, I'm going to be going against, remember my list, I'm going to be going against the founders of Judaism, I'm going to be going against the founders of the Christian church, I'm going to be going against some of the leading Christian voices for 20 centuries, I'm going to be going against one of the leading theologians in our country today, and I'm going to be going against America's founding fathers, and I'm going to be going against the majority of the voters in Washington County. And I can't do that. So I'm voting no, and during my time on the court, I've never asked anybody else to vote a certain way. But I ask you tonight to vote no, because if you look at history, and a lot of us in this room look at the Bible, we don't always come to the same conclusions, but if you look at those two things, and you look at how our founding fathers believed in limited government, that's the only thing you can conclude. And it's not slapping anybody down, it's just saying government doesn't need to go down this pathway. Thank you.
Justice Ecke?
Thank you, Judge. First of all, I'm not in support of this resolution for several reasons, just going through each whereas. I believe that the 14th Amendment of the Constitution already has the Bill of Rights, everybody's protective rights. It includes everybody. Therefore, the first whereas, we are created equal and endowed with the unalienable rights. But therefore, it's mute. We don't need that. The second whereas includes immigrants, refugees. The immigrants that I work with, and I shared this with them, they said, we're not victims. And why are we being categorized with the others? That's not who we are. I said, thank you for your feedback, and I work with a lot of immigrants. The other part, as to fully participating in and contributing to our community, many immigrants already do. You just have to go to the Jones Center and see how they're participating in our community.
Ladies and gentlemen, please be respectful of the debate on the horseshoe. I will ask you, please. Justice Eki, please continue.
Many of them have Noche de Folclórico, where they perform the Spanish dances that are part of their customs. They celebrate Cinco de Mayo. You go on any Saturday, Judge, I'm sorry.
To the gentleman in the sport coat, that's your final warning tonight, that you've disrupted the proceedings. And to the lady behind the lady in the tan coat with the gray hair, that's your final warning too, okay? If we can't respect the proceedings, we're gonna have to ask you to spend your time somewhere else this evening. Justice Eki, please continue.
Thank you, and if you go on any Saturday, you'll see the soccer fields covered with our immigrant community. As far as the third whereas is being carried out throughout our county and city's law enforcement agencies, it says we believe every member of our community deserves to feel safe in their homes, schools, workplace, public spaces, and we affirm that the commitment through this resolution with the goals of making it a reality, it is a reality. And I know that our sheriff and our law enforcement work hard every day, putting their lives on the line to ensure that the public is safe. That is their constitutional duty, and they don't take it lightly. The fourth whereas, it says, whereas known as a welcoming community. I received a lot of emails, phone calls, and text messages, not only from people in Washington County, but our state legislators as well, saying that that implies a sanctuary city. Senate Bill 426, sponsored by Senator Bart Hester and Representative Burks, is a bill that expands the state's current ban on sanctuary cities to include local counties and unincorporated areas. If you look at Section 5C, number 2, the sanctuary policy means an order, an ordinance, or law enforcement policy, whether formally enacted or informally adopted by custom or practice. That is what sanctuary city means. Also, in Section 5, Arkansas Code 14.1-103, it's amended to read that sanctuary policies prohibited by definition of not enact or adopt a sanctuary policy. Therefore, the local government that enacts or adopts a sanctuary policy is ineligible for discretionary money provided through funds or grants administered by the state until the sanctuary policy is repealed or no longer in effect. Furthermore, it says if the Attorney General issues an opinion stating that the local government has enacted or adopted a sanctuary policy that violates this section, local government is ineligible to receive discretionary monies provided through funds or grants administered by the state until the Attorney General certifies that the sanctuary policy is repealed or no longer in effect. In Section D, verse 1, it says, before the provisions of...
Just a second, Justice Eki. Your 5 minutes has expired.
Okay.
We'll entertain a motion, or we can...
I've got one more point
Okay.
to make.
I make a motion to suspend the rules for another 4 minutes or 5 minutes, whatever you need.
It was disrupted.
I have a motion to suspend the rules and add 5 minutes by Justice Dean, a second by Justice Pond. All those in favor? Those opposed? Please continue, Justice Eki. 5 minutes.
Thank you, and thank you for your time. Before the provision of funds or the award of grants is made to the local government, A member of the General Assembly may request that the Attorney General issues an opinion stating whether the local government has current policies in violation of this section. Article 2 promotes policies and programs that I think Article 2 needs to be struck completely. Article 3 is a subtle implication faulting county government as a possible reason that not all citizens have access to county services by means of afflicting fear through discrimination and persecution, which means to harass or punish in a manner designed to injure or cause to suffer. Article 4 says all residents feel safe reporting crimes, accessing emergency services, and seeking county services. It seems to me, colleagues, that Article 4 serves as an intended indictment against our emergency services. I have never heard of anybody who is afraid to report a crime or ask for emergency services. I don't appreciate the faces that are being made across the court, Judge, just to be noted. Therefore, colleagues, this is putting Washington County in jeopardy. To approve this is going against what Senate Bill 426 is passed. And I don't want any of our agencies to be in trouble with the state. And it was for those reasons that I'm voting against it. And I thank you, Judge.
Justice Hires?
Thank you, Judge. Audience, y'all, there's a lot of pearl clutching going up in here for 6 words, and this is a resolution that is saying that we are a welcoming community. It's being twisted up like a pretzel right now. I just want to tell you, I do not claim to know what Jesus thinks or Abraham or George Washington would have thought about this. But I do believe that if we believed in limiting government, we never would have taken the time to pass ourselves as a pro-life community a few years ago. And I think the thing that is really important for me to try to get across to everybody in here that's having feelings about this is that just because you personally haven't experienced something, that does not mean it is not real. People in our community are experiencing these things. And whether or not you want this to be perceived a negative vote, no, negatively, that's how it's going to be perceived. I just need you to understand that. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Justice Rivera-Lopez?
Thank you, Judge. And I would like to start with, perhaps I have a different experience than most of the people here on the court, but my experience with my constituents and with other people in my community is that I have encountered people who struggle to go to their emergency services, who have said that I do not feel comfortable involving them in my process due to any number of status. They don't speak English too well, the color of their skin. There are people who feel this way. Now, part of feeling safe, I'm not saying, again, this is not a binding resolution where I'm asking anyone to take the law and change it. What we are saying is that there is an attitude that we would like to approach every person who lives in Washington County with. A certain affirmation of their dignity that we affirm onto each other. As we have, like many others, my morality is informed by my faith. And there is a verse in Matthew that goes, insofar as you have done it unto the least of us, you have done it unto me. I do not operate off the basis that what makes me different from other members of my community. I do not feel as though that I hold any special standing. I am a human being, and I will never go so far as to not say that anybody else should be treated as less than human or less than how I would like to be treated. And I know that this resolution would mean something to me if I was in their shoes, And as such, it is just about affirming that they have the same, they feel the same sort of belonging that I feel every day. That is the intention of this bill. I do not feel as though it is to violate how we are legislating or going against any other doctrine that's been put forth. It is just to say that people belong, and we recognize that, and we want them to continue to feel as though they belong by having an attitude of acceptance towards others. Thank you.
Justice Rios Stafford?
Thank you, Judge. I've been making notes. I don't even know where to start. First of all, I want to talk about what this doesn't do. A sanctuary city is defined as a municipality that limits or refuses to cooperate with the national government in enforcing immigration laws. That's what a sanctuary city or county or level of government is. There's nothing in this resolution that does that. There's nothing in this resolution that says we're going to violate federal law. There's nothing in this resolution that says anything about anyone in our county that's breaking the law. You know, and there seems to be the equation of immigrants with illegal immigrants. Someone who has done something that's against the law is not even referenced in this at all. Refugees, by definition, are not breaking the law. You know, and I think a lot of people don't make that distinction enough. Last week I went to my hairdresser, and when I was there I ran into someone that I know who works at the university, who's I've known for a very long time. And they told me that they're living in a climate of fear right now because somebody's being investigated for forwarding an email to a student that had information about a scholarship for someone who's a first or second generation American, who's a child of immigrants. And somebody somewhere decided that that was DEI. And I don't know when diversity and inclusion suddenly became dirty words. But there's people in our community who are, they're afraid to like a post on social media. They're afraid that it's gonna hurt their jobs to forward an email. I hate talking about myself. I really would rather do anything else, and that was part of why I was hesitant to even see this come forward. You know, I've got my social media locked down to friends only right now. There is a lot of hate speech, and there is a lot of ugly rhetoric out there right now just because of what's being ramped up all around. My husband bought another gun for home protection. In the last couple months, I've had to be concerned about stuff I've never had to be concerned about. What's going to happen to my passport? What is going to happen to my ID card? Is a law going to be passed to ban my health care? Is a law going to be passed to charge me with fraud for being who I am? Because we're seeing these bills being introduced in other states. And I just want to say, I have no idea if this is going to pass or not, folks. Whether it passes or it doesn't pass, it doesn't matter. You're welcome here in this county. You matter. You belong here. And we want you here in the state and in this county. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Justice Washington?
Thank you, Judge. So JP Hires basically said what I was going to say, that just because something is not your personal experience does not mean that it's not an experience. And I really just want to caution us in thinking that we know everything that there is to know about how people in the groups that are listed here are actually feeling. And I would have to say that you would have to be absolutely tone deaf to not understand why so many populations are fearful. We are seeing discrimination at the state legislature level. We're seeing discrimination at the federal level. And to sit here and to say, oh, that's not a problem. I've asked people, they didn't say anything. I mean, we have to be absolutely tone deaf. You can't turn on the TV or even scroll through social media without hearing, oh, there's an ICE van in Springdale, or this is going on. While some of these things may be true, they may not be true, but we have to acknowledge that there really are people who are fearful. This resolution is not what's inciting fear. This resolution is not what's making people feel unsafe. And this is not asking us to be accepting of anybody's lifestyle. This is not saying that we endorse illegal immigration. None of those things are saying here, but what it is saying is if you are here and you're an immigrant and you live in Washington County and you feel unsafe, we want you to know that as a county, this is a place you can feel safe. What it is saying is, hey, if you're a member of the LGBTQIA, even if I don't agree with how I perceive that you live your lifestyle and we differ on that, but you know what? Because you are a human being, you should feel safe here. So I think that we've really conflated a lot of issues and we're trying to make this resolution say some things that it really doesn't. This is saying, hey, you're safe here. And I don't know why we keep losing sight of that and why it's so hard for us to believe that there are people in Washington County who feel unsafe.
Justice Bruns?
You know, I'm deeply hurt by people that get accused of being discriminated against, excuse me, because in my law enforcement career, I watched a lot of people die, a lot of young kids that died because of fear. And I know that many times I said to the parents or to the other people surrounding them, you know, if you'd have just told us. There's a point in the United States of America, the free nation, the world's freest nation, where we have to stand up. This resolution does not stand above the laws. Everything I've heard around this horseshoe tonight, there is a law where people can stand and go and have people adjudicated due to the fact of being discriminated against. There is no reason we don't already have something in place. And it just grieves me tremendously to know that that's happening and to know what's happening in Washington County that I've spent my life trying to help build and make a good life here in Washington County. This is the greatest area in the nation. This is the greatest nation in the world. There's no reason why we can't stand up and go to our law enforcement and say, folks, I'm being discriminated against about this person, and ask for them to be adjudicated for it. There's no reason. There are laws out there that's for everybody. And I just don't understand why people are afraid to do that, because the consequences are devastating when you don't. And I think that our quorum court is stepping out of their bounds by talking about anti-abortion, talking about this kind of resolution, I think we're stepping out of bounds here. We're getting away from our roads. We're getting away from our buildings. We're getting away from the jail standards. We're getting away from things that we are addressing and supposed to address for our citizens with something like this. And I'd be the first one to stand up and say, hey, if you're being discriminated against, I'll go with you. I'll walk with you to the law enforcement back here and say, let's do something about this. And I just am just deeply hurt that what we're trying to do, in my opinion, is make this resolution, make Washington County look like it's in the black eye of discrimination, and we're not. Yes, we have discrimination, and we need to work on it. And I just am sorry that that's happening, but like I said, I'd be one of the first ones to get up and walk with somebody to get it stopped. And I think if we all stood together instead of apart politically, personally, religiously, if we'd all just stand together, we could make something happen in Washington County. This resolution does nothing but puts a black eye in Washington County.
Justice Coger?
Thank you, Judge. I've made some notes. I just want to say that, first of all, I'm not going to sit here and presume that I know how Jesus or John the Baptist or the majority of voters in Washington County are going to vote, or our founding fathers. I'm sitting here in my privilege tonight, and I know that. As to section 1, or the first whereas, I would just like to point out to everybody here that I copied that paragraph word for word from the county's pro-life resolution that was passed in 2021. The only thing I changed is instead of that the original said that all men are created equal. Well, I'm not having that. I changed it that all individuals are created equal. That's the only change I made in that. And for us to say we're not going down the path of government or we're overreaching, again, in 2021, we passed a pro-life resolution. This resolution tonight is just trying to help people. People who came and told us that they need help. And that's all I'm trying to do. And I would appreciate very much if we could pass this on. Thank you.
Justice Wilson?
I know I talked a long time the last time, but if I have maybe 2 minutes or less left, that's all I would need. Would that be permissible?
I believe you have your full 5 minutes if you need it.
Okay, thank you. One of the things that we have a problem with, and when I say we, I include myself, and I include every American in our society today. Sometimes we run the risk of thinking that we are enlightened in some ways that the human race has never been enlightened before. But when I shared a list of names with people earlier, that is a representation of the greatest minds and some of the greatest lives of the past 4,000 years. And sometimes when I say that, when I say that we think we're enlightened, we can't beat the collective wisdom of the people on the list that I shared. Sometimes we need to realize that we need to listen to the past. We need to listen to people who have accomplished a lot more than any one of us. And we need to listen to some people who have had their ear very close to the very mouth of God. And there's nothing wrong with looking at that. And that's the reason that I submitted that list for people's consideration tonight. Having said that, I don't think anybody in this room has any bad feelings toward anyone else in this county. But it's fine to disagree on what we think is most appropriate. And so that's why I shared my comments this evening. Thank you.
Justice Pond?
Yes, sir. I'll try to be brief. You know, it's mentioned in here in this resolution, or I assume that that's what they mean, that we're all created equal. One thing that's always troubled me is, and it's in here, what troubles me is, you know, if we're all created equal and we're all welcome, then we put some labels on some people. And I'm troubled about referring to certain individuals by some sort of label. And folks put these labels on themselves many times, but how can we be fair to everybody, and then we put some labels on some, and then there's some people that didn't get on the list. There's some minorities that are not on the list here, and how can we, you know, I can say, well, I just don't understand that, but on the other hand, after we vote on this, we're gonna walk out of here with some labels put on us according to how we voted. Or how, you know, it's exactly what's gonna happen. That's exactly what this resolution in the end, that's the bottom line. That's what it does. It allows, there's labels on people in here, and it allows a certain number of people to put some labels on us according to how we voted. I'd say we just well not put this off. We just, looks to me like we ought to vote on it.
Call the question.
Are you finished with your comments?
Yes, sir.
Great. Justice Rivera Lopez? You have to be recognized to call the question. Well, I've got a line here.
Okay.
Justice Rivera Lopez?
Thank you, Judge. I've heard us go at length tonight about what is the most fundamental part of what our portion of the government is supposed to do, but I would say that there is nothing more fundamental to governance than the people that we govern, than the people. Roads don't matter if there's nobody driving on those roads. Taxes don't matter if there's no one to tax. The most fundamental part is that people have consented to be a part of this community. Like any other, they have said that they want to live here, and this place matters to them, and they have elected us to represent them. What I would say is that there is nothing more fundamental than the people who live here, than the people who choose to be a part of our communities, than the people who have abandoned lives in other countries, in other parts of the countries, to be here with us today. And again, like has been echoed many times on this horseshoe, it's not about agreeing with how somebody else chooses to live their life, but it is affording them a dignity that you are afforded every single day of your life, that we wish not to take from anyone else. I think that we can get into the particulars of what our role is, but no matter how abstract you get on the role of government, it is always about people. If you look at the Constitution, as we have liked to reference as the people who founded this nation, the preamble starts with, "We the people." It acknowledges that every man is created equal. It starts there for a reason, because a government, a society, is no greater than the people who reside in it, and the dignity that they're afforded determines the sort of outcomes we will have as a society. And I hope that every one of you considers that as you make your choice. Thank you.
Justice Rio Stafford?
Thank you, Judge. Justice Pond had a good point. Can I ask, do we still know, what was the results of the vote on the amendment to remove?
8-7.
8-7. Can I go back and change my vote?
Yes, that's a motion to
Motion to
reconsider.
reconsider?
That is appropriate.
Yes. I'd like to go back and go ahead and reconsider.
I have a motion to consider Justice Lyons' amendment, is
Ju-
that right?
yeah, Justice
Which
Lyons'
was
amendment.
to strike the words and the dashes on line 19.
On line 19.
And I had a second by Justice Pond. Got a motion by Justice Rio Stafford, and I had second by Justice Pond.
And the reason I want to go ahead and do that is because Justice Pond had a good point, is that if this resolution passes, this resolution won't just be for today, but it'll be for many years into the future. And, you know, I think my colleague who brought this forward had a good point that there are folks who fall under these specific labels who are feeling fear and anxiety right now to some degree, some individuals in these groups. But in the future, it might be people in completely different groups at some point. And so I think that I want to change my vote to future-proof this resolution. Thank you.
Does anybody want to speak to the reconsideration of the amendment? Justice Ecke, would you like to speak to the amendment, or would you like to go back to the main motion? Justice Ecke?
I will speak to the reconsideration, and I'm very pleased for your reconsideration, because I have sat here and tried to help the community that I work in, which is a large immigrant community, only for my words to be taken out of context, put on TikTok, and it created a workplace environment that attacked our employees because of these labels. I was labeled a racist. I thought, wow, with a surname of Cuellar, I'm Jewish and Spanish, and you're calling me a racist. But it's all over TikTok that I was a racist, and I hated the immigrant community. And then it went on YouTube that Lisa Ecke is a racist, and it's there today. I was labeled because I defended law enforcement, and I believed in the good work that they were doing. So I applaud you, and I'm pleased that you've reconsidered, because nobody should be labeled with hate speech like that. Thank you.
We're going to take up the reconsideration. So what that looks like is, when first Counselor has referenced the parliamentary procedure, we have to vote to reconsider, and then we'll vote on the amendment. Does that make sense? So can we go ahead and just vote on the reconsideration right now and continue our debate? Would everybody be open to that? Okay, all those in favor of reconsidering the amendment? Aye. Aye. Those opposed? No. We'll reconsider. Now I believe a motion would be appropriate. Rio Stafford or Justice Lyons, if you'd like to bring your amendment back up. Justice Rio Stafford?
Amendment to edit line 19 to just have the second whereas read, whereas the Quorum Court of Washington County, Arkansas recognizes the inherent dignity of every person and upholds the rights of all individuals to fully participate in and contribute to our community.
Justice Lyons, would you like the opportunity to second that? All right. Further debate on the amendment? Any further debate on the amendment? Justice Pond, would you like to debate the amendment? You recognized?
No, well, I don't, you might call this debate, but, and I'm pleased that with the amendment, but I'm disappointed that we have opposition to it now that we've stricken out or made it to where we're not singling out certain people with certain labels and that sort of thing. I'm not happy with that. So, but I'll vote for the amendment.
Justice Lemming?
It's time to call the question.
We're going to it'd have to be a second.
We're on the motion to
Are we ready to vote on the amendment? Justice Wilson, are you wanting to speak on the amendment?
I have a question, and I may be looking at an old copy, so forgive me, but we're striking out a clause.
I'm sorry, just a second. I didn't have your mic. I
I'm
didn't have your
sorry.
mic on. That was my fault. Go ahead, sir. Please.
Okay. To clarify, we're striking a clause with this proposed amendment. We're striking out a clause under the second whereas. Is that correct?
The words between the dashes.
Yeah, but in the, I don't have lines on my copy, I'm sorry. There's a part of this that says a resolution by the Quorum Court of Washington County, Arkansas, et cetera, as a welcoming and inclusive community for all, maybe my copy's not right, whereas building trust between immigrant, refugee, and it lists these again in another portion. Am I correct?
I believe that was amended.
That was already taken out.
Okay, and that's why I apologize, maybe I'm looking at the wrong copy. But am I to understand now that all references to the specific segments of the population are now removed from the resolution? So if we vote in favor of this, that's
Correct.
what we're doing?
Correct.
Okay, I just had to ask, thank you.
Mr. Allen, will you please call roll? This is on the original amendment to strike the language from line 19.
Justice Lyons? Yes. Justice Ecke? Yes. Justice Dean? Yes. Justice Washington? No. Justice Koger? No. Justice Dennis? Yes. Justice Hires? No. Justice Rios Stafford? Yes. Justice Lemming? Yes. Justice Ricker? No. Justice Pond? Yes. Justice Bruns? Yes. Justice Wilson? No. Justice Massengill? Yes. Justice Rivera Lopez? No.
The amendment passes. We'll have to have a main motion to pass the amendment unless Justice Koger still stand. I assume that your original motion doesn't stand. You would draw your original motion? Or would you like to make a motion to pass as amended?
I didn't understand the first part of what you, I didn't hear the first.
The amendment has passed, so now it's amended.
Yeah, right.
Right, so now the motion is a motion to pass. It's still the motion to pass as amended.
Correct.
Right.
Right.
So it doesn't
And I'm
require-
asking her if she wants to do that.
It doesn't require another motion. The motion's already on there.
Do you want to motion it? I mean, I'm giving her the opportunity to back out of this motion if she'd like to. She's voted against the amendment. I don't know if that's I would just wanting your wishes.
I appreciate that, but I'm against the amendment. I appreciate that, but I'm against the amendment. Thank you.
Okay. We're back to the main amendment, which was motioned by Justice Koger and seconded by Rivera Lopez. Justice Rivera Lopez, that's the motion to pass. Justice Ecke?
Thank you, Judge. I'd like to make a motion to amend Article 1 and remove the word on line 52, county's commitment to being a welcoming and inclusive community. I don't want us to get in any kind of violation with the state and having the word, the welcoming and inclusive community, whereas all residents can live free of discrimination. So I'd like those to be removed as being, Judge?
Yeah, just a
That's
second.
the second time. Or the final
I believe that
time.
person needs to be invited somewhere else. Who was that? Let's get them. Yep, sir, you need to spend your time somewhere else this evening. Justice Ecke, please continue. I believe
I'm looking at even Article 1. The Quorum Court of Washington County, Arkansas declares and affirms Washington County's commitment to being, we could be a community where all residents live free, period. Article 2, it says it affirms, will continue to promote policies and programs that embrace diversity, strength, and community bonds and support the contributions of all populations. I don't know what those policies and programs are, so I moved to strike Article 2 completely. And on number 3, line 62, going back, I'm sorry, to 61, upholds the principles of human dignity and equality by assuring all residents can have access to county services, and to strike the words on line 63, and live without fear of discrimination or persecution. Okay, and then on Article 4, I'd like to strike ensuring all residents have, and strike the feel safe reporting crimes, accessing emergency services. And just put all, ensuring all residents can access emergency services and seek county services. And I'd like to make a motion that we make that amendment to the articles in this resolution. And that is to protect our county from violating any state laws.
Counselor, you got that?
So I'm going to read it as amended based on J.P. Ecky's request. Starting with Article 1, that the Quorum Court of Washington County, Arkansas declares and affirms Washington County's commitment to being a community where all residents can live free. Article 2 is stricken in its entirety. Article 3 will become Article 2, and it will state that the Quorum Court of Washington County, Arkansas affirms that Washington County, Arkansas upholds the principles of human dignity and equality by ensuring all residents can access county services. Article 4 becomes Article 3 and states that the Quorum Court of Washington County, Arkansas wants Washington County to be known as a welcoming place, and we commit to ensuring all residents can access emergency services and seek county services. Is that correct?
That is correct.
I have a motion to amend. Do I have a second? Second by Justice Lemming. Any further discussion on that amendment? If not, we'll take up the amendment. Seeing none, Mr. Allen, will you please call roll? This is to approve the amendment.
Justice Lyons.
Yes, sir.
Yes. Justice Ecky.
Yes.
Yes. Justice Dean.
Yes, sir.
Yes. Justice Washington. No. Justice Koger. No. Justice Dennis. Justice Hires. No. Justice Rios Stafford. No. Justice Lemming. Yes. Justice Ricker. No. Justice Pond. Yes. Justice Bruns. No. Justice Wilson. No. Justice Massengill. No. Justice Rivera Lopez. No.
Motion fails. We're back to the main motion as amended to pass by Justice Koger, second by J.P. Rivera Lopez. Any further discussion on the main motion? Seeing none, are there any public comments on item number 12? Push the button on the bottom right, I believe. Yep, okay. Thank you. Yep, you're recognized.
Thank you. I'm Stephanie Foster.
Ms. Foster, will you do me one more favor? Will you pull that down a little bit?
Sure.
It's not as easy to hear up here.
Yeah. I live here in Fayetteville. And I didn't come here to speak on this, but it's been fascinating watching the discussion, and people are really emotional about it. And the comments have been made that it doesn't really do very much. It doesn't change the law. It doesn't change the rules. It's not binding. But what it does for people, and I think most of the people behind me would agree, is it gives people grace. And we all need to do that a little bit more. It says, I see you. It says, I recognize that you are having some difficulties, that life might be harder for you. And, you know, that means a lot to people. It means a lot to people in my family. It means a lot to people who are my friends, my associates. And I hope you guys will consider that. We don't all, you know, some of us do live in places of privilege where we don't have fear in our communities. But for us to recognize that some people do, and to say, I see you, and I understand what you're going through, and I want you to know you're welcome here, that means a lot. So thank you for the discussion. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Public comments.
Hello, my name is Jonathan Nunez. I live at 1753 Zion Road, apartment 77. I welcome any of you to stop by and have a cup of coffee with me anytime. I was born on a military base in San Pedro Sula, Honduras. My dad was in the 101st Airborne, as was my older brother. He flew 2 tours in Iraq and Afghanistan, flying longbow Apache helicopters. I've lived in this town since '96. I consider myself a local, like many of you do. I don't know if any of you are transplants, but I'm sure that when you came to this county, that you were welcomed with open arms and were able to enjoy all of the wonderful things about this county that we live and prosper in. Just the mere fact that this resolution has had such contention in this body is it's just evidence of the fact that, like, this is exactly what we're talking about. You talk about people not being in fear because they could just go to law enforcement. I mean, Sheriff back there, I would love to talk to him about the discrimination that I've faced being an immigrant myself to this country, even though I'm a naturalized citizen. And I think a lot of people have spoken about, you know, my experience isn't ever going to be the same as yours, and that's okay. I think that when we are talking about big things like faith and how we try to reconcile those things that are really dear to our hearts, whether it's walking with Jesus or trying to discern the wisdom of God and how we apply that to our neighbors and in our community. That's a really big topic, and I hear and understand everything that you guys are saying. However, this is a really simple resolution, and it's just asking for us to say to our neighbors, we see you and we acknowledge you. I think it is rather tone deaf to say that because we're not including these certain demographics in this resolution in particular, that we don't need to do that because, you know, there's Bill of Rights and you could always just go to the cops and if you're facing discrimination. But, you know, sometimes the cops, racism is so systemic that going to law enforcement for a lot of people, whether they're, you know, drug addicts or they're unhoused or they're immigrants or they're part of a historically marginalized group of people, whether they're Black or part of the LGBTQ+ community, that's not an easy thing to do. And of course, you're not going to see that because it doesn't happen. People are scared to go to their law enforcement. People are scared to come up to Quorum Court and talk to you guys because all you do is talk about why are we fighting? Why are we fighting? I know that you have issues amongst yourselves. I know that you went through a really ugly lawsuit. And I know that some of you were named in those lawsuits. It doesn't mean that we have to. Thank you, Patrick.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Appreciate you. Time's expired. Public comments.
Thank you all. My name is Cecily Duncan, and I live here in Washington County. My family's been here for 4 generations. And I just want to reflect on the deep grief I feel when words like inclusive are struck out of our legislation, and how that is happening across our nation. And I also want to talk about the Holy Spirit, and I also want to talk about Jesus, and I also want to talk about prophets. You know who was there when Jesus rose from the dead? It was women. It was Mary Magdalene. You know who stayed to bear witness to his death? It was women. And you know who Jesus imparted his teachings to after he returned from the dead? when he rose. It was women. It was Mary Magdalene, and you know what Paul said?
You need to direct your comments to the chair, please.
Sure.
That's decorum. Thank you, ma'am.
He said, do we have to listen to her? So this conundrum that we're in, it's been going on for a really long time. And I think men have missed a lot of gnosis and a lot of spiritual wisdom in the dismissal of it. And I see men struggling. And I feel so badly for the pain that men are in and what that's brought on all of us. And if you hear nothing else tonight, I want you to hear that I'm on your side, that I care about you, and that I want what's best for you. But we're in trouble. And we've lost our way, and it is very, very deep, the ways in which we have lost it. I want everybody to feel safe. That's not a radical position. And how that impacts me is my choice to bring children into the world, not wanting to bring them into a world that is as lost as this is. And yet, I'm judged for that. When really, that is a deep spiritual knowing that comes through me. To say, I'm not going to bring children into this.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Public comments.
Hi, my name is Jennifer Cole. I'm a chaplain and a volunteer and a voter in Washington County. I volunteer in some of the places where we are going to see the most vulnerable people, and they are the most inclusive places. I moved here in the 90s to raise my children because Fayetteville is the most inclusive and beautiful place that I could find next to New Jersey, which was becoming unsafe for my child. And I raised 3 children here. I'm proud to say I raised 3 children here. Being a chaplain, I just want to say we need to be very, very careful about the word Christian anymore and start thinking about Christ-like and what would Christ do. Because he doesn't ask where you came from or what you're going through or what your background is or your race. He asks what you need. He asked what you needed, and he got it for you, and he helped you. So it wasn't about, you know, who are you? Why are you here? Why are you hurting? It is, let's help this person. And I feel like we need to definitely pass this resolution and show that if this is what we're saying, we need to be more Christ-like, then we need to show that we are inclusive here, and we are welcoming, and we are going to take care of the people that need to be taken care of. And if you're feeling bad about that, then maybe it's the Holy Spirit leaning on you, I don't know. But look into yourself and find compassion, and there should be nothing wrong with voting this in. There should be nothing wrong with saying, yes, I care about people, and everybody matters. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you. Public comments.
Good evening, elected officials. I'm glad to see so many of you again. My name is Sonia Gutierrez, and I'm joined by artist Jen Cole. I'm a former city council member of the city of Fayetteville. My ancestors are indigenous Americans of the Apache, Comanche, and Mayan tribes. My ancestors are also from Europe. It is my honor and privilege to speak on behalf of 2,000 immigrant workers who are active members of Arkansas United, a 15-year-old nonprofit based in Washington County that serves and advocates for immigrants in Arkansas. 750 of these members live, work, and pay taxes in Washington County. I'm one of them. I am also here on behalf of their families, friends, and supporters. We are community, and you are their representatives. And I invite you to listen to a song.
I can breathe in light and breathe out love. I can breathe in hope and breathe out joy. I can breathe in peace and breathe out kindness. I can breathe in light and breathe out love. I can breathe in hope and breathe out joy. I can breathe in peace and breathe out kindness.
Public comment period has expired. Okay, thank you. With that, we're going to take up the question. We have a motion to pass as amended item number 12 by Justice Coger, a second by Justice Rivera Lopez. Mr. Allen, please call the roll.
Justice Lyons? No. Justice Ecke? No. Justice Dean? No. Justice Washington? No. Justice Coger? Yes. Justice Dennis? No. Justice Hires? Yes. Justice Rios Stafford? Yes. Justice Lemming? No. Justice Ricker? Yes. Justice Pond? No. Justice Bruns? No. Justice Wilson? No. Justice Massengill? Yes. Justice Rivera Lopez? Yes.
That resolution fails. Next item are the committee reports. Those were included in your agenda packet, and with that, we'll be adjourned. I hope everyone has a wonderful evening.